Hey, Zakhil, great to have you on this podcast. Just for the benefit of the audience, I'll give the little bit of a context. I'm personally a very high risk kind of an investor. I have exposure to all kind of exotic assets, and crypto being one of them. And over the past few years, of course, I've seen kind of crazy fluctuations in the asset prices. And I've also had issues with exiting some of the platforms. Even though I sold it, I wasn't able to kind of get the INR back in my wallet. And I was also struggling to choose the right assets apart from Bitcoin and Ethereum. I was also dabbling with MAT and Solana and whatnot. That's when someone recommended that I should look at BitSave, which was a pretty unique mutual fund approach to cryptocurrencies, and that's the way I kind of got connected with you, and would really love for my audience also to understand more about your business. So maybe you can start with a brief introduction about yourself.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here. Myself, Zakhil Suresh. I'm the CEO and founder of BitSave. So BitSave is a crypto mutual fund platform. We'll speak more about that as we, go ahead. But I come from a finance background. I was doing CA after my schooling, and that's when I got introduced to crypto. This was back in 2014. That's when a couple of my friends, we started investing whatever capacity we can, and been pretty active in the space since 2017. Have done a bit of brokerage, bit of fund management, and last 3-4 years I've been primarily into trading. I've cleared all three levels of CMT. CMT is basically chartered market technician, the highest qualification for traders worldwide. So yeah, pretty much been a crypto guy all my career, and currently, yeah, I think we felt it's important that we build something that sort of expand the ecosystem and make it easier for others. So yeah.
Great, great. And I understand that you were trading, but how did you move into, okay, let me set up a business around this whole concept.
Yeah. Yeah, this I was working with Coinex, which was one of the largest crypto exchange in India. So from 2017 to 2019, I was with them. Unfortunately, because of the RBI, some issues, banking issues, we had to wind down our operations in 2019. So since then, me and I have a small team. So we've been primarily just trading, doing a bit of brokerage. Since we were also doing brokerage, as in we were helping people buy and sell, or enter and exit. So we were one of the largest brokers in India. Because of that, we found whoever is coming to us, they also had a question. Like, where do I invest? That was a question that came along, and so we realized that when we started 2017, exchanges had like few listings. Let's say at Coinex, when we started, we had like five coins that were listed. So asset selection was not, but over time was, now if you open a exchange, you will find like 500 plus tokens, right? So it becomes a major challenge for anyone who is starting. So we realized that there's a problem, and the magnitude of that problem is only getting bigger, right? With more tokens coming up. So it was somewhere around 2000, late 2020, early 2021, where we decided, okay, this is what we have to solve for. We didn't know exactly what to do, and from a qualification perspective, also we were like, this is what we want to do for the rest of our life. So let's not immediately jump into it. Let's pick up some qualifications. Let's do our research. Let's talk to more people. So we spent almost 2 years. Like I took up CMT, my co-founder Asif, we took up MS in financial planning, and we were speaking to a lot of people, were researching, and then we realized that maybe an active approach doesn't really make sense, because it's very difficult for people to understand, how actively managed products function. So we felt passive products make more sense to solve this problem, because it's easier to make someone understand what, let's say, something like an index fund is. Unlike saying that, okay, I come with 4 years of experience, now you trust me with your money, right? And we have the numbers also, making clear that passive beats active in the long run, right? So then we started searching for what are the best indexes that we have in crypto, because we all know that, let's say, when it comes to Indian market, you have an Nifty 50. For US, you have S&P 500. But what do we have for crypto? It's not something that, most people use Bitcoin as the index for the entire market. So we shortlisted. We realized Bloomberg has an index, Nasdaq has an index, S&P Global has an index, but we particularly went with the Bloomberg index because it's a very beautifully constructed index. So the problem with other indexes is that since Ethereum and Bitcoin takes up most of the market cap in crypto, those two assets constitute for almost 90-95%. Which leaves very little room for other assets and the growth of other assets. But what Bloomberg has done is that they've capped each asset at 35%, which means that the maximum Bitcoin and Ethereum would take is 70%. You have like 30% of very potential new projects that are coming. And most importantly, I feel they bring their research angle also into place, where they're like, not any random token gets into the index. Let's say if, for example, FTX, for that matter, they realize that there's a fundamentally weak project, so they never included it as part of the index. So we really loved what they were doing. And on the other side, there were no retail products that were sort of giving users or investors an exposure to this particular index that I'm talking about. So we went to them, we went through their due diligence, and finally last year they granted us the license to build an index fund that is tracking their crypto index, to be precise. So yeah, that is how the whole journey shaped up. The idea was that you see a lot of projects happening in crypto, but I feel most of them are for the people who are already in the space. Let's say, to make the experience better for people who are already in the space. We felt it's important to make or simplify the product itself so that we can expand the ecosystem, because we constantly see people who tells us that I want to have exposure to crypto, but I don't understand how these things work, right? And we felt, okay, index fund solves for that problem, because most of them invest into a stock, and you don't go and look into Adani's balance sheet or Reliance 6-year plan, right? You just invest into a Nifty 50 fund or any other mutual fund, so that the product itself is very simple, and you don't really have to go and do your extensive research, right? So that's what we've done, and I think so far we've been pretty successful in terms of onboarding some newcomers also, because there's been a lot of people sitting on the sidelines and they're very comfortable with our model. So yeah, that's how it evolved over time.
It's very interesting, as an individual investor, I've also gone through my cycle of actively managed mutual funds. I'm talking about, typical equity. And then over a period, I've also moved to passively managed funds, because one problem I was seeing on the listed space was the best performing funds are always churning. I look at 3-year, 5-year performance, and I invest in fund A, and in another year or 2 year, that fund's performance goes down, somebody else comes up. And I realize, instead of just churning the funds, put it in a passive and let it accumulate. That works very well. And also, as an investor, my personal thought process or behavior is, I like that passive approach. Dal do, bhul jao, let it accumulate over a period. So I'm very kind of pleasantly surprised that for an asset class which is as volatile, as less understood, and as new as it gets in terms of crypto, you're taking that same passive approach, and you're trying to onboard new investors who may not have had an exposure to this kind of an asset class. On that note, I'm sure you would have heard this. People like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are dead against crypto. They've actually used words like rat poison and rat poison squared when it comes to cryptocurrencies. I'm sure you must be meeting people like that, when you talk about your investment platform. So what's your answer to, these kind of strong naysayers?
No, I think uh, I'm yet to find someone who have properly understood the technology and still hate it. I think maybe there's a blame that we as a community also have to take. I think there's more conversation around the prices instead of the underlying technology, right? I've had conversation with very senior people, especially in wealth management, where one hour into the conversation where I explain to them what Bitcoin is, what Ethereum, and I've seen their eyes popping, like what sort of a technology this is, because those are the kind of conversations that they've never had, with other people, right? Coming to very these senior people in the industry, I think it's a new technology, right? And I don't know if everyone can understand or everyone is open to understanding a new technology. For example, let's say, I think the best example is internet itself, right? When internet launched, people were making fun of it, and we still have videos before 20, I think 2000s, right? So where people are making fun of this whole new technology, people are scared to use it. But see where we are today, right? We can't imagine a world without internet right now. Uh, and a lot of these people who are very vocal about the advantage of Bitcoin or crypto right now, for example, Michael Saylor or BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, they all were non-believers a few years back. Like, you still have Michael Saylor's tweets where he was bashing Bitcoin, and now that guy is like, let me sell everything I have and buy Bitcoin, right? And you have Larry who's saying that this is an asset class that's going to protect you. Like, I think 3 years back he was calling it index for money laundering, right? So he himself admitted that he was wrong. So I think he put some effort into understanding the underlying technology. For me, I was always fascinated about the technology, to be honest. I mean, in 2014, when I first read about it, uh, because I was doing my CA internship, right? So the funny part was, on one side, I was dealing with SBI net banking because most of the client funds were routed through SBI. And I was having a difficult time because if I type password incorrectly for 3 days, funds are locked for 24 hours. I can't even touch it. Weekend, I can't move the funds. I can't add a beneficiary. If something goes wrong, I have to run to the branch, right? And on the other hand, I'm reading about a technology that is borderless, that works 24/7. No one can block me. And that is where I saw the potential, right? And over time, I've seen that. I mean, just to I had one of my videos edited by a guy in Iran a few years back. He sent me an invoice after his work, and he was like, to make, I think, some $350. I went to the bank and I said, Ki, I want to wire some money to Iran. They said no. Iran is, I guess, a sanctioned country or something, and you can't wire funds to Iran. And I was like, how do I pay this guy? He's already delivered, the work. And he was like, do you have crypto? I was like, of course. Settled in 2 minutes, right? So that's where I see value. That's where I think, over the next 10, 15 years, you will see, more real world use cases that's going to happen with this space. I think, and I'm completely fine if someone, talks bad about it. I think it's okay. I think there's this famous quote by Satoshi himself where he says, I don't have time to make someone understand if they don't believe, so let it be. I think everyone will get it when the time comes, and yeah.
There's a very high chance that the specific example you gave about you paying money to someone sitting in Iran could get you in trouble. This is exactly what all the government guys are trying to avoid. No, no, no. We need control. We need kind of governance on intercountry transfers. But I hear you. I hear you that it's a very new uh, platform, and it's a very new way of thinking. And honestly, governments feel threatened, I think, to a great extent. I've come across
Yeah,
those
I think
conversations.
yeah, I mean, it's basically, they have very less control over it. They're trying to, let's say, impose travel rule and things like that. But I think I get their concerns. But I think I think it's difficult to fight this technology. I think that is where we are heading. So maybe somewhere we might have to find a middle ground, where uh, both the regulations and the technology coexist. So let's see how things shape up.
Sure. Yeah, and someone I was speaking to, a very senior guy in a VC fund, he was mentioning that he has written a white paper which has been accepted by none other than the FedEx in the US, and where his prediction was that by 2050, the biggest challenger to the power of USD as a global currency will not be another currency, but will be some kind of a
Yeah.
cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So the US government is cognizant of the what's coming up, so to say. But yeah, I'm sure there is a lot of turbulence up ahead before we reach some kind of stability. But I think that's the beauty of any new technology or startup, so to say. um, you know Talking about startups and crypto, it's still not, I would say, as commonly accepted. It's far better than 20 years back. When someone would say I'm starting something of my own, the family's reaction would be, why don't you get a job in an L&T or an Infosys? Today, I think parents and family members are a little more tolerant. But you really went rogue in terms of, I'm doing a startup, and I'm doing a startup in the crypto space where, there have been whatever, so many legal issues, there have been scandals and whatnot. So, how did your family react, or how do your friends or cousins react when you tell them that, boss, I'm doing a crypto startup?
No, I mean, I think BitSave, I'm not seeing it as something new, right? I mean, it's an extension of what I've been doing for the last 10 years. So all these conversations literally happened 10 years back, not right now. Right. BitSave is just another avatar of the same thing that we've been doing. Uh, so I think the challenge with parents was, obviously I was doing CA, and I'd cleared both the levels, CPT and IPCC at my first attempt. They really wanted me to finish, like, let's say, complete the course. So in 2017, I started preparing for my finals. That is when the bull market was starting. And I literally had to make a choice of continuing with my finals, or, there's an opportunity out there where you can go and make a difference. And I went with my gut feeling. I said, okay, this is what I want to do. And CA, I can always come back. I mean, tomorrow if this doesn't work out, I can always come back and finish the finals. Uh, and I've been very fortunate, I would say. Like, I've had parents. I mean, my parents are very open to these kind of things, and they always want me to be happy, or, let's say, me to chase my dreams, right? So they've never tried to push all those, their wishes or desires. So I've been very fortunate that way. And even in the space, even though we've had our ups and downs, we've been able to stay in the game. We've been able to make progress over time. So it's not been as difficult, because all those difficulties happened in the initial days. And I think in by 2019 or 20, I had convinced my parents that it took me 6 years, but in 6 years I had convinced or made them understand, okay, this is here to stay, and we're doing something real. I mean, you won't believe me. Like, last couple of months back, I went back home and I told mom, ki, we are actually ideating on something in the real estate space, like the tokenized real estate space. And she was like, is it real estate, or is it some digital real? Because she's so used to, me doing something in the crypto space, right? So she was not even convinced, okay, this is something real world asset that we are doing. So uh, yeah, things been pretty smooth, especially with BitSave. Of course, they have their concerns, but I think to an extent, the fact that last 6-7 years or so, we've been able to support ourselves. I think that is what they look for, right? Whether their children are able to live on their own, or make a living out of this. And we've been fortunate enough to do all that, so they're not very concerned as they were a few years back. So yeah, that's not really, that's not been a challenge of late.
Uh, Lovely. I mean, due credit to all the family members backing all the founders, and uh, thanks for being so candid that it took about 6 years, but now your mom really gets it. Oh, you digital, physical, all that stuff. Very, very, very nice to hear
Yeah.
those stories. So personally, are you like 100% invested in crypto, or do you have exposure to other assets as well?
It was the case up until, I guess, 2020 or 21. Uh, I think during the 21, like, after that cycle is when I felt that maybe my risk appetite was also, sort of thing, that 20s is sort of getting over, and you're growing, and I got married also in between. So you start thinking long term. So I've reduced my exposure, still more than 50%, but I think there was a time, I still remember that day when I realized that there's a whole world outside crypto, and my life sort of changed that particular day, because till then I was like, whatever I earn, whatever I make, it's all going to be in this space, because this everything I am today, I owe to this industry, right? So, but I think it's also important to preserve your wealth. It's also important to diversify, and that's a whole philosophy of BitSave itself, right? The fact that you should be diversifying your assets, and we don't tell any of our clients, let's say, put everything that you have in crypto. We recommend, let's say, the maximum you should do is like 10%. I'm not there yet, but I've been trying out a bit of mutual funds with bit of direct stock, private equity and stuff, but which I'm pretty sure, in the years to come, that percentage is going to come down in crypto. But I mean, the same thing that I want to tell to any youngster. I mean, I think it's important to stay diversified. There will be a time when your favorite asset class may not perform. So never, get too emotionally attached to anything. It's important that you think long term and stay well diversified. And that is something that I'm working on actively right now.
Fantastic. And you're truly like a rare person I've seen in the investment space, who's vocally saying that, don't invest 100% of your assets into my asset class. Otherwise, typically I see real estate enthusiasts who don't recommend anything apart from real estate, or stockbrokers who are like, बाकी सब बकवास है, बस, stocks में invest करो. And, I love the fact that you're talking about
Yeah.
diversification. Obviously, you're coming from that space and you're moving from 100% exposure to slightly smaller. Most of the people are coming from the other extreme, that they don't understand anything about, crypto, and kind of trying to get an exposure there. Good stuff. Uh, you know, One thing I've seen, especially with private equity startup investments, when I speak to VCs or syndicates, or some of the founders as well, when they've raised their initial capital, some of them are very happy to do friends and family round, just because some of them don't ask questions, but some of them are also very wary कि boss, इसको मेरा asset class कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा. He is coming in assuming crazy kind of returns, and eventually this person is going to be very, very difficult to manage. So I might as well not take money from my immediate family, so to say. What has been your experience and your theory when people and your immediate friends and family call you to discuss crypto investments?
So, I mean, on one side, I'm a very private person, so I'm not very well connected, to let's say beyond a particular circle within the friends or even family. But uh, like I've always preferred helping them, whenever someone wanted to have the exposure. And I think we've been doing it for so many years. We try to make them understand about the risk. I mean, I think we outside, there's a lot of conversation that happens around the returns of crypto, how much BTC went down. But I feel there's very less conversation that happened around the risk associated with that kind of return, right? The the fact that Bitcoin has dropped 70% 7 times in the last 13, 14 years. You don't hear a lot of people talking about it. So we try to tell people, that this is potentially in a cycle, you might end up, being down 70%, 80% for that matter. And if you're not okay with that, you shouldn't be having an exposure, or you should limit your overall exposure, right? Because not everyone is like, I've seen people who freak out even for like some 10-15% of drawdown. Right? Then how do you have crypto in your portfolio? I can't, it doesn't really make sense. So it depends on person to person. I think it's important you make them. For example, I think 2 years back or something, I had someone who came to me with some 8 crores or something. It's like, I want to put all that to crypto. I said, no, I mean, you shouldn't be doing it. Right. So it happens. We've been trying to help people diversify, and also, maybe pick the right assets as well. So that they don't end up losing all that they put into it, right? So open to it, not really, not try to keep anyone away. There's been two things, right? When it comes to investing in BitSave, we've been a bit picky. It's not that we took money from everyone that wanted to give us funds, but when it comes to index funds or directly into crypto, we don't have any issue. Like, we try to help people because it's a good exercise to have as well, right? I mean, tomorrow, even outside your family circle, you're gonna deal with n number of clients having n number of personas and behaviors. So it's important that you get used to it and try to learn how to handle different emotions, different types of people, right? So yeah, that's been the case.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, let's talk about the regulation side. My broad understanding of the current situation is, if I invest in crypto through any platform, and something goes wrong, whether there is a hack or I'm not able to get back my money, I cannot take any help from the government because it is unregulated per se. But if I actually make money from that platform, then I have to pay taxes to the government. Is that broadly the situation? Is there anything additional you want to
Yeah,
talk about?
that is more or less correct. I mean, crypto right now is unregulated, just like, maybe digital gold for that matter, or fractional real estate for that matter. It's the same, from a regulatory point, it's the same thing. If you lose money, you can't really go. And I mean, I think even if crypto gets regulated, I don't think we're gonna have a scenario where you can go and ask for money from the regulator. I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, for example, in banks, if bank collapse, you get like, I think 5 lakhs, up to 5 lakhs, the government is going to pay you. Right? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the regulations, what they're going to do is basically lay down guidelines on how to, run a company, the sort of disclosures that you need to have, the sort of transparency with which you have to operate, which we don't have right now. But fortunately, the government of India is working on a bill based on IMF's policy paper, which in fact recommended that positive regulation is the right step and not banning crypto. So they're working on something based on that, probably 1 or 2 years away from it becoming an act. So that is on the regulatory side. On the other side, yes, I think 2 years back they came up with the tax rules, and if whenever you make a profit, you need to pay 30% on that. And whenever you make a sale, 1% of that is deducted by the exchange. Wherever you sell, it gets deducted and credited against your PAN as TDS, which of course you can offset against your overall taxation. So I think from a investor point of view, the only thing that you have to do right now is make sure that you're paying tax properly. In the ITR, you have a separate section indeed, to mention all your crypto investments and pay tax accordingly. So yeah, as we speak, that is the only thing that from an investor perspective that you need to take care of.
Understood. There was some major marketing push by a large crypto exchange that they're regulated through FIU. I didn't understand much. Do you want to explain that to the audience?
Yeah, so I think yeah, I did also come across a couple of those marketing activities. I think regulated was not really the right word, because so last year all the crypto service providers in India, we all are included in the PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act. And as a part of it, all of us are required to be registered with FIU, which is Financial Intelligence Unit, for the sake of data sharing. Like we're supposed to report all sorts of high value, suspicious transactions to the government. That's the whole point of it. So it's not like there's no regulation around it. It's just that you are basically sharing your data with the government. And what happened was in December, the FIU said that some of the largest exchange in the world, they have not registered with the FIU, and they're not really complying with these rules. And basically they asked the Ministry of IT to block the URL and remove it from Play Store, App Store, and all those things. So I think that's when Indian exchanges, or let's say FIU registered exchanges or businesses felt maybe we can push the fact that of course we are registered, so it's important that you stay invested in those kind of entities instead of something that is not. Because see, honestly, the problem right now is that if you had some funds on Binance, and now Binance has gone from Play Store, App Store, and you can't access Binance.com, how do you get that funds, right? I don't know. Like, I don't know how a normal average investor is going to access those funds. So in a way, the push to move to people towards the compliant exchanges, that was a good thing. But I don't know if that communication was done, in the right way, or because I think it came out in a way that if you lose money, then you're protected in some way, by a government agency. But that is not really true. So I think the intention was right, but the way it was done, maybe I have my concerns about those communications that went out.
Sure, sure. You know, you're in an unregulated space, and obviously, you haven't raised like $1 zillion so far. How are you managing your marketing? Is it all organic, driven by word of mouth? What has worked for you? How are you growing? Would love to hear a little bit about that.
We've been growing organically so far, and since we've not raised an institutional capital, like we don't have much to allocate for marketing budget or any of those things. So we've been trying to, grow organic for the simple reason that that's a very sustainable way to grow, right, as a business. And we always believe that at the end of the day, we are enablers and not really people who can push people towards, investing in crypto. The idea for us is that if someone wants to have exposure to crypto, like, we want to be there as one of the best options for them. And we can't go there and tell people, okay, this is the time to invest in crypto, and you should be putting money into it. But that's not something that we do. So because of that, I guess we do get a fair amount of referrals on the platform. The early users, they're absolutely loving what we have built. We've been primarily focusing on that. We've been also trying to establish some distribution channels through existing, like growth advisors and let's say all these financial product distributors who are already out there. Because even from their perspective, right, even though I personally know very senior people in the industry who have recommended people to have, or their clients to have, exposure to crypto. But then of course the next question is which crypto, right? So that problem has been very significant, and now we are solving for that problem. So we feel that the product is right, and we have a very good commission-based structure also, where we share half of what we earn with our distributor network. So we've been focusing primarily on that, and whatever small amount of money that we make from the management fee, that we try to experiment with some, like small campaigns. Or one thing that have worked for us is, let's say, magazine features, or all these small videos that goes out in financial, let's say, financial social media handles. Right. So, because I think from a product perspective, it's easy to understand. And what we have done is that we have done it with utmost transparency. Like, I think I can confidently say that you can't find, a platform that is as transparent as BitSave when it comes to crypto, at least for the stage we are in, right? We operate with 100% transparency, and whatever number you see on the app, you can verify it directly on blockchain. So because of that, we've been able to answer all the questions, and so the word of mouth has been pretty strong. Like I think people, especially after FTX involved, people have also been a bit scared when it comes to referring or recommending crypto platforms. But when it comes to BitSave, since they have all the answers, basically, all the questions answered, and everything being transparent, I think it also gives them the confidence to go and talk about it or recommend it to their friends and families. Yeah.
Great, great. I wish you the best, and I hope more investors come flocking to you, and you launch more innovative products. Any last words for startup enthusiasts or crypto enthusiasts?
Startup enthusiasts, I guess, like personally believe that uh, in the next 10-15 years, the most successful people are going to be those who manage distractions well. Because if you see the world is becoming, more chaotic, you open social media, you are losing control over the content that you want to view, right? Like they're trying to push what they want you to view. So I think it's important to manage the distraction and realize the fact that the time is the most important thing that you have. So that itself will help you being more streamlined and be more, you'll be able to make the best out of, the limited time. The moment you realize that there's no infinite time that you have, right? The quality of work that you put in also automatically increases. So, and also try to have, especially in crypto, try to have long-term visions. It's very, again, the distraction part itself, every 6 months you have new narratives, every 6 months you have new things coming up. So it's very easy to lose focus of the big picture and keep trying different things. And what it does to you is that, I talk a lot about power of compounding. It's not just about money, it's also about the skill, right? So let's say in 4 years, if you end up doing 4 different things every 4 years, at the end of 4 years you will end up being good at nothing, right? But if you've consistently done something for 4 years, it puts you in a very good situation where you're very, you have that core competency in what you do. Basically your skill has compounded over the last 4 years. So I think it's important that you keep that long-term picture in mind and start working towards that, instead of being distracted by all the fancy things that keeps popping up here and there. So yeah.
Great. Really appreciate your time, Zakhil. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.